Okay, hey, this is a response video to a response video. I guess I will try to keep this as clear and as precise as possible. Um, Basically, our dialogue so far has been talking about the nature of religion, and if I have your stance correctly, um, you're basically seeing a religion as a system of thinking, or perhaps non-thinking, irrationality. Um, I don't know, you didn't clarify that exactly, but a system which has some kind of absolute that people, once they begin to practice this religion, adhere to. They adhere to an absolute, some ultimate meaning of reality, some ultimate grounding principles. And if they are sufficiently, I guess you could say, adhered to this particular religion, they begin to conform, as you said, to the principles of this absolute. Now, in your, I guess, your thesis, you've implied that this absolute is intolerant, that religions all have, at their core, intolerance, violence, and hatred, I guess, those basic violent, intolerant tendencies. So even people who don't really believe in violence, they're still adhering to an inherently violent, and I guess if I may go so far as to say evil core or essence, which is religion. I've heard this argument before. I don't necessarily think it is an accurate way to portray religion. I guess for one primary reason, and that being, if you deconstruct the nature of a religious practice and the nature of a religion, never mind changing absolutes, never mind the rest of the argument that we may have gone back and forth, this is, I think, a more revealing perspective, I think, that we can take. If you deconstruct this absolute, if you ask, well, okay, this absolute didn't just come out of nowhere. Where did it come from? How did it come to be? You realize that this religion was created by people. Now, whether or not you want to believe the tenets of the religion itself as an absolute, the belief system, the God, the gods, or perhaps the non-gods, is a system created by human beings. Because the system was created by human beings, you cannot necessarily call it, I wouldn't call it an absolute, I would call religion a man-made system, created by people with their own attitudes, their own philosophies, their own worldviews. So religion is somewhat of a construct, it's a cultural artifact, it is a system of beliefs that emerged through time and history for multiple reasons. So when you say religion is the source of evil, let's say this if you call religion an absolute, I think that's sort of an inaccurate terminology, because the religion is just a construct. It's a system. In the words of perhaps Jiddu Krishnamurti, this would be a good analogy. A religion is just a assembly of things. It is a system that man has made, and because of that, we can't blame the system for evils. If a religion is inherently evil, if a religion is intolerant, it's saying more about human beings than it is about a religion. If that is the case, then it is human beings who are inherently violent, intolerant, small-minded, ethnocentric, prone to hurting each other. Yes, I believe that says more about human nature, because the system, such as religion, or politics, or government, or any kind of creation in society, anything that's out there is a reflection of what's in here and the way we think. I recommend reading Jürgen, I think that's how you pronounce it, Jürgen Habermas, Ken Wilber, and any other developmental social theorist. And basically, they'll tell you that the systems that we set up in society, whether it be a particular form of government, a particular religion, a particular way of acting and behaving, we conform to a system, yes, but at the same time, the system is created by us. So we have this similar process of what you would call social conformity, which includes religion, and it's also called societal reproduction, passing on the norms to the next generation. And at the same time, those who create the system that people adhere to, they are reflected in the same developmental progress and process. So all this is really saying human beings made religion. Human beings created these absolutes. And since human beings have a diverse nature, these absolutes aren't inherently intolerant. The reason why they may have been more intolerant in the past is because human beings were more intolerant. We were more ethnocentric. We were more tribalistic. We were more violent. And that is why, yes, every single religion, no matter where you go, has some degree of violence in it. Not because the religion itself is inherently violent, but because human beings are the creators of the system. So don't think of, I think it's unwise to think of religions as these things in themselves. They aren't. They are a very organically grown creation of human beings. So humans make the system. It doesn't go. It goes the other way around, but only to some degree. Often a system reflects the general mentality of a society at a given time. People are more aware, less aware, more tolerant, less tolerant. So this thing is always in flux. It makes little sense to call this an absolute in that terminology. I would just call a religion a reflection of a worldview. It is a symbol or a metaphor, an embodiment of a worldview that people believe in. So if you see it this way, if you deconstruct that absolute, which is what I'm saying to do, I'm arguing that people make the system up. So it can change, and it depends on how people are, not on how this absolute is. A byproduct of having a religion or a system is that, yes, it will eventually come down and make people conform. But even this structure of conformity that you're speaking of is part of a social developmental process. It has lesser and greater degrees of intolerance or awareness. And Habermas in particular categorizes it as pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional morality. What you're talking about when you're saying conforming, what you're basically saying, at least translating it to Habermas's words, human beings develop in a society and they are taught to learn and to act specific ways as they grow up. And one particular stage of development is where you simply adhere to rules and roles that you're supposed to play in society. In a religion, in a religious institution that is at the conventional level of moral and cognitive thinking, you just adhere to rules. Only when you reach post-conventional, when you start to reflect upon these rules, is when you begin to think of new things, you begin to deconstruct religion, you begin to think more rationally, and perhaps more universally. You begin to abandon perhaps things that you realize are violent tendencies without any critical thought. So the emergence of more rationality over time, more critical and reflective thinking, is also evident in societies, and thus evident in religion. So all of this, everything that I'm mentioning, is really just describing the nature of societal evolution and how religion is a part of that. Religion evolves because people evolve cognitively. We think differently than we used to. And therefore, the systems that we have, such as religious systems, change as we change because we created them. They don't just stand there and emanate some kind of true absolute. There's no such thing. If you break it apart, you realize it is our own creation. And since it is our creation, we are reflected in it. And I guess that is my main point in all of this. This, of course, says nothing about whether or not there is something in religion that is true and divine and transpersonal. But that's besides the point. I guess this is talking about something else. And one last point, the monk thing. The monk that you mentioned who burned themselves. They were doing it to themselves. It wasn't intolerance or violence. It was meant to protest suppression. I just wanted to clear that up. But yeah, thanks for listening.